Paul Foster-Bill.
Tēnā koe e te mana whakawātuaroa, tēnā koutou katoa e ngā mema o te whare. Sir, in rising to take a brief call on the Wellington Town Belt Bill in the second reading debate, I think I need to be gracious and congratulate the local member, Grant Robertson, for getting this bill into the House and progressing this piece of local legislation. I used to think Grant and I only agreed on one thing, and that's that we both wanted David Cunliffe to lose the last election, but now we've found a second thing, which is that the Wellington Town Belt is an important asset and amenity for the people of this city, and it does need to be protected within a modernised regime. Sir, I wonder if the ordinary person in the street will go through the details of the bill, and in fact I'm almost certain that the vast majority of Wellington citizens won't, but as other members have pointed out, it is exceptional that over 30 submissions, 20 of whom asked to submit in person, took the time to make their views known on what is a fairly technical piece of legislation. But I do think we need to, in this House, ask the question what the ordinary person, the average person, would make of the provisions and how sensible they are. And I'm not going to use Lord Denning's, the ordinary man on the Clapham omnibus. I think we can find a more modern version of this test. Let's call this the ordinary person. Let's use the name Alistair, for instance. So Alistair is an enlightened person. He enjoys walking through the greenery of the town belt. He is a fit person. A lot of Wellingtonians are getting themselves a bit fitter. I try and walk up the hills a little bit and to work off some of that weight. But Alistair is a fit person, but he's an enlightened man. He values the environment, but he's also pragmatic and sensible. He'll want to ensure that, for instance, the provisions of the Public Works Act do continue to apply, so that if transport situation becomes untenable, as it has become in the Basin Reserve, where we have now over 100%, close to 110% capacity on that particular crucial arterial route out of our city, out of our capital city, to the airport. If that becomes such a major issue that the government is obligated to act under the Public Works Act to put through a transport corridor, I think Alistair, the enlightened man, the ordinary man on the street, would look at that and say that is something that is sensible. So, sir, the amendment that was put through in the committee and agreed by the majority, that the Public Works Act 1981 continues to apply in full force to this precious area that we do want to protect, I think that is a sensible and pragmatic move. And we heard evidence in the committee, including from the local lines company, that this was important. This is important in a city that is prone to earthquakes, that we maintain, for instance, the ability to rig temporary emergency power lines through the town belt, to plug in the hospital in Newtown, and to keep a critical emergency service operating in the event of a catastrophe of the sort that we have seen recently in Christchurch. So, sir, that was a pragmatic, sensible measure that I'm sure Alistair would approve of. One part of the bill that I think is of particular interest is actually the preamble, which contains whakatauke, a saying, a Māori saying, "Tumutumu paria, rako paria, whānui te ara kia tāne," ward off post and weapon, so that the expansive path of mankind is opened up. And this is unusual, I think, in the vast majority of non-treaty settlement-related legislation, that we have that kind of whakatauke contained in the bill. We also acknowledge the mana whenua of this area, those who inhabited before those colonial settlers arrived. And I noted that the member who had resumed her seat before I stood up, Megan Woods, referred to the 19th century principles and policies that prevailed in the formation of the town belt. Some might argue that those 19th century policies are still evident in the Labour Party's trade position, for instance, and other economic development policies that they've been promulgating. But, sir, this is a bill where it's not appropriate to take political potshots. I'm going to come back to welcoming it, to congratulating the local member, and to adding my voice to those of others who have welcomed a piece of legislation that will continue to safeguard such a precious amenity going forward for the next 150 years and more. I commend this bill to the House.